Introduction. The discovery. The emergence of the Empire. In the distant future, humanity had stretched its reach across the stars. Earth, now a distant memory for many, was still the birthplace of the human race, but their empire had grown far beyond their home planet. From the dense jungles of distant worlds to the icy moons that spun around giant gas giants, human colonies thrived. They had fought wars, formed alliances, and conquered new territories, but there was one thing that they had never expected: the discovery of something so powerful, so unimaginable, that it could change everything. The story begins on a quiet day in the Galactic Council, a meeting of the most powerful leaders in the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered in a grand hall on the neutral planet of Ornis, a place where all could speak without fear of war. The council usually dealt with small matters of trade, diplomacy, and territorial disputes. But today, something far more pressing was about to unfold. An unknown signal had been detected, coming from deep within the uncharted regions of space. At first, it was dismissed as a false alarm. Space was vast and mysterious, full of strange signals, odd anomalies, and unexplained occurrences. But this signal was different. It was too powerful to ignore. It was too clear. It was too precise. The galaxy's most advanced technology had been scrambled to trace the origin of the signal. The transmission came from a distant part of space, a sector that was barely mapped, known for its dangerous, unpredictable nature. The area was filled with black holes, nebulas, and violent radiation storms, which had made it impossible for explorers to travel there for centuries. Yet, the signal persisted. The Galactic Council, after much debate and concern, decided to send a fleet to investigate. Leading this expedition was Commander Rylan Harper, a seasoned veteran of the human military. He had led many successful missions, and though he was calm and collected on the outside, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. What could possibly be so important in that part of space? After months of travel, the fleet reached the source of the signal. What they found was unlike anything they had ever imagined. Floating among the stars was a massive warship, an incredible creation of steel and light, so vast that it seemed to fill the entire void. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress, a living, breathing war machine. The warship's design was unlike anything known in the galaxy. Its structure was not made from the usual materials. It shimmered in ways that made it look almost like it was a part of the stars themselves. The fleet's scanners barely scratched the surface, unable to fully comprehend the ship's technology. It seemed to be more advanced than anything humanity had ever built, and far beyond anything the other species in the galaxy had ever seen. As the fleet approached, the warship suddenly activated. Its engines hummed to life, releasing a powerful burst of energy that sent waves of shock through space. The ships in the fleet barely managed to avoid the blast, and Harper felt his heart race in his chest. It was as though the ship was aware of their presence, watching them, waiting for something. Commander Harper immediately ordered a full analysis of the warship. His crew worked tirelessly, their minds racing to understand what they were looking at. Yet, as much as they tried to scan and probe, they found nothing that made sense. The ship was far beyond anything their best scientists had ever seen. It seemed almost alive. Its energy readings fluctuated in ways that shouldn't have been possible. It seemed to change its structure when observed, as though it were adapting to whatever was nearby. But there was one thing that stood out above all else. This ship was armed. It wasn't just a transport or a simple vessel. It was designed for war. Its weapons, though unseen, were more powerful than anything the humans had ever encountered. The fleet's leaders were divided on what to do. Some suggested they return to the Galactic Council and report the discovery. Others feared that this warship might be a threat, something so powerful that it could potentially destroy entire civilizations. But the real shock came when the ship's automated systems activated a communication channel. A message blinked on the screen, written in a language unknown to anyone on the fleet. And yet, somehow, the message was clear. Too strong to be allowed. The word sent a shiver down the spines of every person in the fleet. What did it mean? Who had built this ship, and why was it out here in the unknown regions of space? And why did it have such a powerful warning? Before they could discuss further, the ship's weapons powered up, and without warning, it fired a single shot into space. The blast was so powerful that it tore through a nearby asteroid field, reducing massive chunks of rock to dust in a matter of seconds. It was as if the ship was demonstrating its power, making sure that the humans knew exactly what they were dealing with. Harper's heart pounded as he realized the full extent of the threat. The warship wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, too powerful to be allowed to exist, yet far too dangerous to ignore. Back on Earth, the news of the discovery spread like wildfire. People wondered, who had built it? And why? What could a ship of such unimaginable power mean for the future of humanity and the galaxy as a whole? But the question that haunted everyone was simple. What would happen if this warship fell into the wrong hands? The answer, Harper feared, might be the end of everything. And thus began the journey into the unknown, a journey that would bring humanity face to face with an unstoppable force, and force them to make a choice that could change the fate of the entire galaxy forever. The warship's power. As Commander Harper and his crew continued to study the massive warship, they quickly realized that they were dealing with something beyond their wildest expectations. The ship's technology was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. It wasn't just advanced, it was ancient beyond time, and yet strangely new. Something about it felt out of place, like it didn't belong in this era. The fleet's scientists worked day and night, attempting to analyze every inch of the warship. Its energy readings were off the charts, fluctuating in ways that defied all known laws of physics. The ship seemed to be powered by a source no one could identify, something far more potent than conventional energy sources. Every attempt to send a probe inside the ship was met with strange interference, as if the ship itself was actively blocking their efforts. Every new scan they attempted was met with new layers of mystery. At first, they thought it might be a weapon, just a very advanced one. But as they began to probe deeper, they realized the truth. This was no ordinary warship. This was a ship of war like nothing they had ever seen. It was a living, breathing entity with its own will, its own mind. One evening, as the fleet hovered nearby, something extraordinary happened. The ship's energy signature spiked, and in the blink of an eye, a vast field of energy rippled outward, engulfing the fleet's ships in a soft, yet unnerving glow. The fleet's systems started to flicker as if they were under the influence of a massive invisible force. Commander Harper's heart raced as he saw that the ship was starting to respond to their presence, not just in its physical form, but in its very essence. The warship was alive. The energy field was powerful, but it didn't seem to be hostile. It didn't destroy the ships. Instead, it gently pressed against them, as if it was testing their resolve. Harper ordered his ships to hold position, unsure of what was happening. The crew was nervous, but they trusted their commander. In the silence of space, the warship suddenly shifted. Its hull seemed to pulse, and then, like a massive eye-opening to the universe, the warship's weapon systems powered up. A low hum filled the ship's communication systems. They didn't know what to expect, but they knew one thing for certain. This ship was far more than they could handle. Without warning, the ship fired a single targeted shot into space. The blast of energy streaked across the blackness of space like a shooting star. In its path, a nearby moon was shattered into pieces, its surface disintegrating in an instant. The blast was so powerful that the shockwave it created rippled through the nearby asteroid belt, sending fragments of rock tumbling toward the fleet. The display was terrifying, yet awe-inspiring. The warship had just destroyed an entire moon with one shot. The fleet was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Everyone was in shock, watching as the warship slowly powered down, almost as if it was showing them just a glimpse of its true power. For a few minutes, there was only the hum of the warship's energy systems, a constant reminder of the unimaginable force that lay within. Commander Harper's mind raced as he considered the implications of what they had just witnessed. It wasn't just a weapon. It was something far more dangerous. The warship had the power to destroy entire planets, entire systems, with ease. It could obliterate everything in its path with a single command. "Commander," said Lieutenant Alia, his trusted second-in-command, breaking the silence. "We've only seen a fraction of what this ship is capable of. What if it's not just a weapon? What if it's something else entirely?" Harper looked at Dorian, his face hardening. "We've already seen what this ship can do. Do you really want to risk everything on this power? This is not the future humanity deserves. We need to destroy it before it destroys us." Dorian hesitated for a moment, his face contorted with rage and confusion. But the warship seemed to be making its own decision. As its energy systems surged, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Harper's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. They were running out of time. The warship, in its immense power, was not waiting for their permission. It was reacting to the conflict, to the violent struggle between the two men. The energy readings grew more intense, and the bay seemed to hum with life. Harper's team began to move into action, taking up positions around the warship. They had no choice now. The only way to ensure that the warship's power didn't tear the galaxy apart was to disable it before it reached full capacity. But they couldn't do it alone. They had to work together, or else they would all be lost. In that final, desperate moment, as the warship's energy began to charge for one final blast, Harper made the decision. The only way to stop the warship's destruction was to sever its connection to the universe, to the unknown force that had created it. He turned to Alia, his voice steady. "We have to shut it down. Now." The two of them raced toward the control console, dodging blasts and debris as the warship's final charge grew more intense. They had to act quickly or else the warship would fire again. And this time, there would be no stopping it. As Harper reached the console, he could feel the power coursing through the ship, through his very body. It was as if the warship was fighting back, resisting their efforts to stop it. But Harper was determined. He had to destroy the ship, even if it meant sacrificing everything. With one final command, the warship's systems flickered and died. The lights dimmed, the energy subsided, and the ship's hum slowly faded to silence. But it wasn't over. The warship had been deactivated, but at a cost. As the team stood in the stillness of the bay, they realized that their victory wasn't without consequences. The ship's power had caused massive damage to the fleet, and the galaxy was now more uncertain than ever. The warship had been stopped, but the question remained. Was humanity ready for the consequences of what they had just witnessed? And would they ever truly understand the power they had almost unleashed? The outcome. The silence that followed the deactivation of the warship was almost suffocating. The energy that had once filled the bay, pulsing with raw, destructive potential, was now gone. The warship's systems had powered down, its hum replaced with an eerie stillness. Harper stood there, his heart still racing, trying to process the enormity of what they had just done. The crew, battered and exhausted, began to regroup, each person silently reflecting on the battle they had just fought. The warship was no longer a threat, but the damage had already been done. The galaxy had witnessed something that had never been seen before, something so powerful that it had shaken the very foundations of the universe. Harper turned to his team, his voice low but resolute. "We've won, but the cost is great. The warship is no longer active, but what we've discovered today, what we've seen, is something that can't be ignored. The galaxy is forever changed." Alia stepped forward, her face grim. "We've stopped the warship from falling into the wrong hands, but what happens now? The Keepers, what about them? And the rest of the galaxy? Will they ever trust us again?" Harper's mind raced as he thought about the bigger picture. The Keepers, the mysterious guardians of the warship, had been watching them all along. He wasn't sure whether they had been allies or silent observers, but the fact that the warship had been hidden for so long spoke volumes. The truth was, the warship was more than just a weapon. It was a key to an ancient history, one that no one truly understood. Humanity had barely scratched the surface. But there was also the fear of what would come next. The galaxy's leaders, already divided and suspicious, had been watching the events unfold. They had seen humanity's potential for destruction, and while they had feared the warship, they now feared what the actions of the human race meant for the future. As the fleet slowly pulled back from the warship, Harper knew that the galaxy was no longer a place of simple alliances and diplomacy. The balance of power had shifted. Humanity had shown that they could build something capable of unimaginable destruction, and the galaxy's other species would never forget that. As the crew dug deeper into the translation, they discovered an ancient fragmented history, one that spoke of a lost civilization, long gone, who had once mastered the stars. This civilization had created the warship, a powerful tool designed to maintain balance in the galaxy. But the message seemed to warn of something darker, something that could go terribly wrong if the ship were to be used improperly. The Keepers, it seemed, were not just protectors of the warship. They were its guardians, sworn to ensure that it was never used by the wrong hands. They had kept it hidden, away from the rest of the universe, for reasons unknown. Why had they left such a powerful weapon hidden for so long? And who were the Keepers now? Were they still out there, watching over the warship? Harper's thoughts raced as he tried to make sense of everything. Could the warship be part of an ancient human legacy, or was it a tool created by an even older, unknown race? And what did the Keepers want with it? Why had they left this ship, so full of power, hidden away, only to have it emerge now, at a time when the galaxy was teetering on the edge of chaos? As Harper and his crew pondered the implications, the warship suddenly powered up again, as if reacting to the signal they had just intercepted. The massive vessel shifted in space, its surface pulsing with energy, and its weapons systems hummed to life. It was almost as if the ship was aware of their every move, as if it was testing them. Harper felt a chill crawl up his spine as the warship turned toward the fleet, its weapons now fully armed, and its energy systems glowing brightly. Was it a message? A warning? Without warning, the warship fired another shot. This time, the energy blast was aimed at a distant asteroid, but the power behind the shot was terrifying. The asteroid was obliterated instantly, reduced to nothing but a cloud of dust and rock. It was a reminder of the warship's sheer destructive power, a reminder of the stakes they were dealing with. The fleet scrambled to avoid the shockwave that followed, but it was clear. The warship wasn't going to let them off easily. It was testing them, challenging them. The question that haunted Harper now was whether they would ever learn the truth behind the ship and its mysterious creators, or whether the truth was something they were not meant to know. As the fleet regrouped, tensions ran high. With every passing moment, the stakes grew higher. Commander Harper and his crew were caught between the desire to uncover the truth and the fear of what might happen if they did. The warship was more than just a weapon. It was a force of nature, one that could either save or destroy them all. The deeper they dug into the mystery, the more questions arose, and the more answers they found, the closer they came to discovering something that might be far worse than they could have imagined. Human resistance. As the days turned into weeks, Commander Harper and his fleet became increasingly uneasy. The warship was powerful, more powerful than anything they had ever imagined, and it was clear that its creators had gone to great lengths to ensure it would never fall into the wrong hands. But the question that plagued Harper's mind was whether their hands were the wrong ones. The Keepers had warned them. The ship's destructive power had already been demonstrated. Was it worth the risk to continue exploring it? And if so, could they control such a beast? In the quiet moments between the reports and scans, Harper found himself reflecting on Earth's history. Humanity had been known for pushing boundaries, for taking risks, for seeking out new frontiers, no matter the cost. He had seen it in wars, in exploration, and in the endless expansion of human reach across the stars. Was this ship just another frontier to conquer, or was it something else entirely? Not everyone in the fleet shared Harper's sense of caution. Lieutenant Alia, his trusted second-in-command, had become increasingly concerned about the mission. While Harper wrestled with the moral implications of continuing the investigation, Alia feared the worst. The more she learned about the warship, the more convinced she became that the galaxy and humanity would never be the same if the warship was allowed to remain active. "Commander, we need to act now," she said one day as they stood on the bridge of the flagship, gazing out at the ominous silhouette of the warship. "We've seen what this thing can do. It's not just a weapon. It's a ticking time bomb. The longer we wait, the more likely it is that someone else will come after it, someone with far less noble intentions than ours." Harper turned to her, his face grim. "Whatever it is, it's too powerful to ignore, too dangerous to leave unchecked. We need to find out who created this thing, and why." As they continued to study the ship, a terrifying truth began to emerge. The warship wasn't just built for destruction. It was built to control. Control the galaxy, control the universe, and even control time and space itself. The weapon had the potential to reshape the very fabric of reality. Every scan, every analysis only revealed more questions. Where had it come from? Who had created it? And why was it hidden in the farthest reaches of space? The galaxy was full of mysteries, but this warship was something else entirely. The warship's communication system activated once again, sending another message in the strange, cryptic language. But this time, it was accompanied by a clear visual, the outline of a humanoid figure, dark and shadowy, standing before an ancient throne. The figure spoke, and though the language was still unrecognizable, a strange sensation washed over Harper and his crew. This wasn't just a message. It was a warning. The warning was clear, too strong to be allowed. The words echoed in Harper's mind, filling him with an unsettling sense of dread. Whatever this warship was, whoever had created it, they had clearly intended for it to be kept hidden, perhaps even from the rest of the galaxy. The crew realized that the warship was more than just a threat. It was a key to something far larger, a part of a much darker mystery that, if unlocked, could change everything. And now, the most dangerous question of all hung in the air. If they couldn't control this warship, would it control them? The discovery of this warship wasn't just a turning point for humanity. It was a turning point for the entire galaxy. And no one knew what would happen next. A mysterious force. The days that followed the warship's demonstration of power were filled with tension. The fleet hovered on the edges of the unknown, unwilling to move too close to the massive war machine, yet unable to leave it behind. Commander Harper and his crew were left to question everything they had ever known about space warfare and the true nature of humanity's place in the galaxy. The warship had shown itself as a weapon, a symbol of unstoppable force. But what if it was more than just that? Despite their best efforts, the fleet could not gain any deeper understanding of the warship's inner workings. Its design remained an enigma. Every time they tried to scan it, the ship seemed to react, shifting its structure, blocking their readings. It was as though it didn't want to be understood, as if it was alive and aware of every move they made. The warship was no ordinary vessel. It had its own consciousness. Weeks passed, and Commander Harper began to suspect that they weren't dealing with just a ship. The warship had shown signs of self-awareness, responding to their actions, reacting to their presence, as if it had a mind of its own. This realization sent chills down his spine. If this warship was somehow alive, who, or what, had created it? Theories began to emerge within the fleet. Some believed it was a product of human engineering, created by a secret faction of the human race who had access to ancient, forbidden technology. Others speculated that the warship was the work of an alien species far more advanced than any known to the galaxy. But as the days passed, the truth seemed even more distant. And then, just when the crew thought they couldn't be more confused, something incredible happened. One morning, as the fleet drifted further into uncharted space, a strange anomaly appeared on their sensors. It was a faint signal, barely detectable, emanating from a nearby star system. It was unlike anything they had encountered before. This signal wasn't just random noise. It seemed to be an organized transmission, a message. "We've found something," Harper whispered to himself. Could this be the answer? The fleet's scientists immediately began working to decipher the signal. It took hours, but slowly, they began to piece together the message. It was not in any known language, but the computer systems managed to translate a few keywords. The message was simple, but chilling. "We are the keepers. We protect the ship. You cannot control it." The words sent a ripple of shock through the fleet. The keepers. Who were they? And what did it mean to protect the ship? The warship that had been found in the farthest reaches of space, was it not simply a weapon, but something even more sacred, something guarded by an unknown force? The New Dawn faction, with their highly trained soldiers, had quickly overwhelmed the fleet's defenses. They had positioned themselves inside key ships, locking down communication systems and cutting off vital supply lines. As the fleet scrambled to regain control, Harper knew there was no time to waste. If they didn't act fast, General Dorian would have full access to the warship, and it would be too late to stop him. "Lieutenant Alia," Harper called, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to take back the fleet. Now." Alia nodded, her face set in determination. "Yes, Commander. We'll rally the Loyalists and take back the control center. You can't let Dorian get to the warship. He won't hesitate to use it." Harper nodded, already calculating their next move. "I'll go to the warship's docking bay. If Dorian wants control of it, we'll make sure he doesn't get it without a fight." As Harper and his loyal officers prepared for the mission, the warship remained eerily silent, its weapons dormant, but its presence still looming over the fleet. It was as though the ship itself was waiting for something, waiting for the moment when it would reveal its true nature. Meanwhile, General Dorian stood at the helm of his forces, watching the chaos unfold from the central command. He knew this moment had to be perfect. The warship was within his reach, and with it, he could rewrite the future of the galaxy. It didn't matter who got in his way. All that mattered was the power that ship could bring. The new dawn would rise, and the rest of the galaxy would fall in line behind humanity's reign. "Sir, we've regained full control of the central command systems," one of his officers reported, snapping him out of his thoughts. Dorian smiled coldly. "Good. Now let's proceed. Send a team to the warship's control center. It's time to make sure nothing, and no one, can stop us." As Harper's group made its way toward the warship, they encountered unexpected resistance. Dorian's soldiers were everywhere, moving swiftly and silently, and the halls of the flagship were soon flooded with gunfire as the Loyalists fought back. The stakes had become personal now. Harper wasn't just defending the galaxy from a dangerous weapon. He was fighting to protect humanity from the very leaders who were supposed to safeguard it. The warship loomed ahead, its massive frame barely visible against the black void of space as Harper's team approached the docking bay. The closer they got, the more oppressive the feeling became. Every step they took felt like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. "Commander," Alia's voice came through the comms, "we've got movement ahead. The New Dawn is securing the warship's bay. We need to move fast, or we'll be trapped in here." Harper's heart raced. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. The warship was the key to everything. Its power, its secrets, and its potential to either save or doom the galaxy. If Dorian reached it first, there was no telling what he would do with it. "We can't let Dorian take control of the warship," Harper said, his voice firm. "We have to stop him here." The Loyalists pushed forward with everything they had, determined not to let the warship fall into the wrong hands. But the New Dawn was well prepared, and they fought back with brutal efficiency. The corridor leading to the docking bay was a battleground, each step forward coming at a heavy cost. The sound of gunfire echoed through the ship, and Harper could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him. As they approached the docking bay doors, a voice crackled through their comms. "Commander Harper, this is Lieutenant Volkov. The New Dawn has reached the warship. They're preparing to initiate full control protocols. You don't have much time." Harper's pulse quickened. This was it. The moment he had feared was upon them. Dorian was getting closer to the warship, and soon it would be too late to stop him. "Understood," Harper replied. "We're almost there. Hold the line until we get inside." With one final push, Harper's team reached the docking bay. The doors slid open, and they were met with a sight that would stay with them forever. The warship stood in the bay, its massive form casting a shadow over everything around it. Its power was palpable, almost suffocating, but standing in front of it, ready to claim it for himself, was General Dorian. His eyes locked with Harper's as the two men stood face to face, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. "Commander," Dorian said, his voice dripping with contempt, "you should have known better than to stand in my way. This ship will belong to humanity. And to me." Harper's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. "I'm not letting you use this ship for your own ambition, General. You don't understand what you're dealing with." Dorian's lips twisted into a grin. "I understand perfectly. You're just too weak to see the potential here. We can control the galaxy with this ship. We can end all war, all suffering. Humanity will rule, and it will be glorious." Harper didn't flinch. "At what cost, General? You're willing to sacrifice everything just to hold power. You've already lost your humanity. You don't deserve this ship." As the two men faced off, the warship seemed to react to the confrontation. Its energy systems hummed, its weapons slowly powering up, as if it too was waiting for something, a decision. The choice had been made. One side would control the warship, and the other would fall. The countdown had begun. The final stand. The air in the docking bay felt charged, as if the warship itself were alive, anticipating the clash that was about to unfold. Harper stood, unwavering, staring down General Dorian. The power of the warship loomed behind him, its presence undeniable, but Harper's resolve was stronger. He wasn't just fighting for control of the ship, he was fighting for the future of the galaxy itself. Dorian stood in front of the massive warship, his hands folded behind his back, a look of cold satisfaction on his face. "You don't understand, Commander," he said, his voice dripping with confidence. "This ship isn't just a weapon. It's a new beginning. The galaxy is on the brink of destruction, corruption, greed, war. With the warship, we can stop all that. We can make humanity the ultimate force in the universe." Harper shook his head. "You're blinded by ambition. The power this ship holds is too dangerous. We can't control it. It's too big, too unpredictable. We've seen it. It's not about saving the galaxy. It's about destroying it." Dorian's smile didn't waver. "You're too naive to see the bigger picture. We've fought, we've struggled, but this is our time, Commander. Humanity has suffered long enough. It's our turn to reign." As the words left Dorian's mouth, Harper could feel the warship pulse, its energy systems beginning to glow brighter, as if it were reacting to the conflict between the two men. The ship seemed to understand the struggle, almost as if it were waiting for the decision to be made. Harper's mind raced. He couldn't allow Dorian to take control of the warship, not after everything they had learned. If Dorian succeeded, he would use the ship as a tool for domination, and there would be no turning back. The galaxy would be plunged into an era of human tyranny, and no one would be able to stop it. Harper took a step forward. "If you think you can just take this ship and use it like a weapon, you're wrong. The warship isn't just a tool, it's a force. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's too powerful, too unpredictable. We don't understand it fully. We can't control it." Dorian sneered. "You're just scared, Harper. Scared of change. Scared of a future where humanity is no longer a pawn in the galaxy's games. This is the future we deserve. Suddenly, the warship's engines hummed to life, sending a powerful tremor through the floor. The glow of its energy systems intensified, filling the room with an almost blinding light. It was as though the ship itself was reacting to their words, to the battle for its control. Harper's eyes widened as the warship's weapons systems powered up. It was no longer a passive observer. It was becoming active, as if it had a will of its own. And it wasn't just reacting to Dorian's presence. It was reacting to both of them. Without warning, a loud hum filled the bay, and a blast of energy shot from the warship's weapon systems. The force of the blast was so powerful that it caused the walls to tremble, sending a shockwave through the entire fleet. Harper dove for cover, instinctively shielding his team. The blast was aimed at Dorian, but it barely missed, tearing into the floor just inches from his feet. "Stop," Harper shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "This ship is beyond anything we can understand. It's not ours to command. It's too powerful for any one person to control." Dorian, his eyes wild with anger, turned toward the warship, his hands clenched into fists. "No, this is humanity's destiny. You can't stop it." But as he shouted, something strange happened. The warship's energy readings spiked again. But this time, they were not aimed at Dorian. They were aimed at both of them, Harper and Dorian, locked in the middle of the bay. Harper's heart skipped a beat. It was as if the ship had decided. It was no longer about humanity's factions or their ambitions. The warship was reacting to the conflict, to the choice between domination and restraint. The ship's power was too vast, its capabilities too dangerous. It wasn't about who controlled it. It was about whether anyone could control it at all. Harper looked at her, his face set in grim determination. He had heard her concerns before, but the more he thought about it, the more he began to understand where she was coming from. It wasn't just the warship's power that worried her. It was its potential for abuse. Whoever controlled the ship could hold the galaxy hostage. Humanity had made too many mistakes in the past, and there was a fear, deep in the pit of their stomachs, that they might be on the verge of making another. "Are you suggesting we destroy it?" Harper asked, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. Alia hesitated, her gaze locked on the warship. "Yes. I don't want to, but I think it's the only option. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. And if the keepers are right, that's exactly what will happen if we let it stay out here." But Harper couldn't bring himself to act so quickly. The warship held too many mysteries, too much power. It was part of a forgotten history, and there was a nagging part of him that believed humanity had a responsibility to uncover that history, to learn from it, rather than simply destroy it out of fear. While Harper wrestled with his conscience, word of the warship had begun to spread beyond their fleet. The Galactic Council, the governing body of all known species, had received word of the discovery and its implications. Rumors of the warship's existence spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Soon, envoys from every corner of the universe began to arrive, eager to stake their claim on the powerful vessel. Each faction believed they should control it. The military leaders for its power, the diplomats for its influence, the scientists for its unknown technology. But there was one thing they all had in common. They all feared humanity's potential to wield such an extraordinary weapon. As the envoys arrived and the debate intensified, a faction within the human military, led by General Marcus Dorian, began to take a different approach. Unlike Harper, who was still trying to understand the warship's purpose, General Dorian saw it as an opportunity to cement humanity's dominance in the galaxy. He was a man driven by power and ambition. For him, the warship was the key to unlocking a new era for humankind, a new empire that would be unchallenged. Dorian was no stranger to hard decisions. He had led countless operations in the past, and his ambition knew no bounds. He didn't care about the potential dangers of the warship. He cared only about what it could give humanity. With its power, humanity could crush any foe. The galaxy could be theirs. His goal was clear: seize the warship and use it to secure human supremacy. He had already begun to take steps to do so. Secretly, without Harper's knowledge, Dorian had started to gather a faction of like-minded officers and soldiers. They called themselves the New Dawn, and their mission was simple: take control of the warship at any cost. One night, as Harper and his senior officers met in the command center, a warning signal blared across the ship. The entire fleet went on high alert. Dorian's faction had made their move. They had staged a coup. "Commander," Lieutenant Alia shouted, her face pale, "the New Dawn is moving to seize control of the warship. We need to act now." Harper's heart sank. The stakes had just been raised to a level he never expected. What had been a mission of exploration and discovery had now become a race for control of a weapon that could change everything. And with General Dorian's ambitious drive, there was no telling how far he would go to claim the warship for humanity, no matter the cost. Harper's decision was made in that moment. If he didn't stop Dorian, the galaxy would fall into chaos. If the warship was to be controlled by anyone, it would be by those who understood its true power, not by those who sought to use it for domination. The race to control the warship was now a battle between two factions: Harper's fleet, determined to protect and understand the warship's true purpose, and General Dorian's New Dawn, who sought to use it as the ultimate weapon of control. In that moment, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The enemy strikes. The tension within the fleet had reached its breaking point. Harper's hands gripped the edge of the command desk as alarms blared throughout the ship. The New Dawn faction, led by General Dorian, had launched a surprise attack to seize control of the warship. The entire command structure of the fleet had been thrown into chaos. Harper stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. This wasn't just a military coup. It was the beginning of a new conflict, one that could tear the galaxy apart. General Dorian wasn't just after power. He sought to harness the warship's untold destructive power and use it to impose humanity's will across the stars. The very idea was terrifying. "We need to send a message," Harper said, his voice steady but full of determination. "We can't let this be the end of everything we've worked for. We need to prove that humanity can be more than just power. We have to rebuild trust, rebuild what we've almost destroyed. The galaxy won't forgive us for what they've seen today, but we can't just give up." The crew nodded in agreement, but there was still a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air. Harper knew that they had to face the consequences of their actions. The warship's power, its existence, had forced a new era into being. What would happen next was unclear, but the choices they made now would define the future of humanity and the galaxy. As the fleet began to withdraw from the warship's vicinity, Harper took one last look at the massive vessel that had almost led them to the brink of disaster. The ship, now dark and silent, stood as a monument to both humanity's potential and its flaws. It had been an instrument of unimaginable destruction, yet it had also been a tool for growth, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. Harper's thoughts were interrupted by a transmission coming through from the Galactic Council. It was a message from the leaders of the galaxy, their voices cold and cautious. "Commander Harper," the voice said, "we have watched the events unfold with great concern. The warship you have discovered is beyond comprehension. Humanity has shown that it is capable of both great ambition and immense destruction. We cannot allow this power to go unchecked." Harper's stomach tightened as he prepared for the inevitable. The galaxy was not ready to forgive. They would want answers, and perhaps retribution. But he had no choice but to face them. "We are prepared to address the Council's concerns," Harper replied, his voice steady despite the tension. "But humanity's actions have shown that we are capable of more than just destruction. We will prove that we are worthy of a future among the stars, but we cannot do it alone." There was a long pause before the Council leader spoke again. "We shall see, Commander Harper. But understand this, the galaxy will never forget what has happened here today. Trust, once lost, is not easily regained." As the transmission ended, Harper stood there, a mix of determination and uncertainty settling in his chest. He knew that the road ahead would be difficult, But it was the only road they could take. Humanity had narrowly avoided disaster, but it was clear that their future would now be defined by their ability to learn from their past mistakes. The warship was gone. Its power had been neutralized, but its existence had left a mark on the galaxy it would never fade. The question now was whether humanity could prove that it was ready to take its place among the stars, or whether it would be forever viewed as a dangerous force, capable of wielding destruction beyond imagination. As the fleet made its way back toward Earth, Harper looked out into the stars, his mind filled with the weight of the decision that had been made. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity's journey had only just begun.